Hi, Mr. Hemang. Thank you so much for joining me on this show today. How are you
Hi,
doing?
Rohan. It's a pleasure. Thank you so much, and it's a pleasure for me. Likewise, and I'm doing very well. Thank you.
So, I'd like to start by asking you a brief background about your journey and how you got into this field for our listeners, especially if you can help me with that.
Uh, sure. Just a background. I'm an engineer by background. I did all my studies in India, and after engineering, I worked for a year in the manufacturing sector, and then I did my management studies again from Mumbai. After management studies, I actually moved back to the manufacturing sector for a few years, and then I got a break in banking with India's largest private sector bank, ICICI Bank. So I changed my industry, changed the sector, moved to banking. Um, I was actually interested as well, and that's why, in a way, kind of wanted to make that move as well. I was interested in banking. My grandfather has, I've had bankers in my family, so kind of you can say there's an influence from my granddad to be in banking. I worked with ICICI for a few years, and then I got this break with HSBC in India again. So I moved to HSBC, and then I joined the payments. We call it transaction. Payments is a sort of a sector within the banking industry, and
Yeah,
it's part of an overall transaction banking remit, if you like, right? So I've been in the payments industry since now 2000. I mean, to some extent in ICICI, but in HSBC since 2008. So been with HSBC for the last 16 years. The first 8 years I was in India. Then I moved to the Middle East to Dubai for the next three. So 2016 to 19, I was in Dubai. And then 2019 onwards, I've been in Hong Kong. So
yeah.
HSBC gave me the opportunities actually to move internationally, to answer your question in a simple way.
Okay. So, how was that shift, moving from your homeland to Dubai, then to Hong Kong, where you are right now?
It's been amazing. I always tell people that, more than money, etc. The whole international stints, the kind of network or the friends I've made across many countries is my biggest asset.
Yeah,
Right. So it's been an amazing experience. And of course, there are some things you have to sacrifice, right? So we,
exactly.
of course, wanted to, as a family, move internationally because I wanted to give my daughter, I have a 18-year-old daughter now. I wanted to give her an international exposure, an
Yeah,
exposure to experience the world, different cultures, people, and alongside even we got that kind of an exposure. And HSBC being a multinational bank, it's always anyways good to build your career in a multinational bank in different geographies, right? You're more valuable within the bank if you do that. So that's what we wanted to do. But yes, as I said, we have to make some sacrifices. Of course, then um, since we had stayed in India for a long time and I moved out of India uh,
yeah,
after quite a few years, we've had to sort of, uh, you know, in a way, my parents are still there, right? My friends are like your dad are still there. So you have
yeah,
to move away from them. Move away from your social life, and which is not easy.
yeah.
Which is not easy. So that's a sacrifice you have to make. But again, you have to keep you don't lose that, right? So you keep visiting India, your folks keep coming wherever you are. So you maintain the contact. And technology like WhatsApp and other things have really helped us to
Stay in touch.
maintain that connect,
Yeah,
right? So
exactly.
that's the thing. Yeah.
So moving to Hong Kong, it wasn't just solely about the business. It was also other aspects, like you said, moving. You and your family mainly decided to move abroad because also for your daughter, correct?
Correct. That's right. And again, even after moving abroad, we changed a few places, right?
Yeah, from
Dubai
Dubai
and then
to
Hong Kong.
Hong Kong.
And it's also when you move, within an organization, you also move sometimes to do different roles and build different skills.
Yeah,
So I've changed roles. done different types of roles in that process, and again in different countries. So one is you know learn the sort of culture in different places, but you also um, do different roles and build skills in that fashion, right? So it's many things, geographies, different roles, a lot of things come along the way.
You also mentioned you did you first started off with engineering, correct? And then you moved to banking. So how did that relationship come along and how did you end up moving to banking? Was it, I mean, you told me that banking was something you were always interested in,
Yeah,
but then how did you get that opportunity and the expertise to enter the field of banking? If you can tell me a bit more about that in detail.
sure. So yes, in a way, banking is not connected to engineering, and
Yeah.
maybe you can say that I'm not using the what I've learned in engineering, right? But I think one thing engineering taught me was analytical skills and quantitative skills, right? So my math used to be strong, and that helped me in engineering also.
Okay.
And that, I could build on those skills in engineering and even in banking because it deals with finance, it deals with numbers, right?
Yeah.
And if you have a strong grip on numbers, it'll help you in banking as well. So that was one common aspect between banking and engineering. Um, so so yes, that helped me, and then I could build on that to sort of advance my career in banking. Um, Again, because I did management right after engineering, I did management studies, so that also expands your perspective. It teaches you many other things. It teaches you some bit of finance, some bit of marketing strategy, some bit of HR, and other things. So which again are all useful in a career in banking, right? So yes, I mean no regrets. Um, Though looking back, and if you were to ask me, maybe I could have, if I was interested in banking right from the beginning, I could have maybe planned my education a bit more
That way.
centered around banking.
Yeah.
But anyway, so there are always things you can do differently, which you realize later. But
Yeah.
this is how I would say engineering ties into banking.
The
And
banking.
once you're in banking, once you're there, you have to use your common sense and skills and keep building on that, right? And if you have it in you, if you have the basic skills and common sense in you, you can my fundamental belief is you can grow anywhere as long as you're able to adapt to that particular industry and adapt to that field. You can grow
Yeah.
anywhere, so you just have to then keep building and keep work putting efforts behind it.
I think also nowadays there are a lot of these courses available online where you can do MBAs and get those expertise and move on to a completely different business field or industry that you haven't had any experience with. So yeah,
Correct. Absolutely. Absolutely. And again, learning never stops. So even
yeah,
we may think that, okay, I've done graduation, I've done post-graduation, then I just have to focus on my career. It doesn't work that way nowadays because everything is so fast evolving that you have to keep, updated with new technologies, new things that are happening in your particular domain. So I make it a habit to learn new things. I've even done a lot of courses with universities alongside my work. In fact, today, right now, I'm in office on a Sunday because I'm doing a course with Imperial College London on sustainability. Right,
oh,
so I spend a few
good.
hours on Sunday in office. It's a bank sponsored course, so I work on that, and I'm doing a few hours every week on that. So learning never stops. You have to keep learning.
Yeah, I agree with you on that. So you also mentioned a couple of challenges that you faced of how you have to stay away from your social life and your parents as well and family. So I wanted to know any other challenges you faced when you been in this journey during this journey and how you overcame them and the lessons you learned from them.
I Yeah, so I think as I mentioned earlier, every country, every region, the cultures are different, right? So therefore, you have to sort of consider them even at the workplace, right? And working styles are different, right?
I
So
agree.
your bosses, your peers, your team, their working styles are different, and you have to, and your customers also different. Their working style is also different, right?
Yeah.
So you have to respect individual cultures, and you have to adapt to different cultures, and yet meet the goals of your organization or your what you set out to do, right? So you have to, and typically organization goals are similar across different countries, but cultures are different. So how do you adapt to the culture and meet the same goals is the biggest challenge, right? What works, what style works in one country may not work in the other country. Maybe it may actually not work at all. So you have to understand. You have to sometimes read, understand about cultures, and fine tune your operating style, working style, so that you can meet your goals and objectives by working with different people, right?
Yeah.
Um, Especially when you move out of India, because India, you can just
You need
do
to be
many
open-minded
things.
when you're,
Y-
yeah,
Correct, absolutely. So in India, again, things work in a different way. Different other
yeah.
countries internationally things work in a different way. So that's the biggest challenge, and that's what you need to overcome.
And any lessons you've learned that, like, for example, if I or any of the listeners are going to go through a similar challenge of moving abroad, shifting away from family, any advice you'd give them, any lessons you've learned that may help them, adjust better?
Yeah, I think some key things come to my mind if I look at lessons learned in my career, right? One is, uh, as I again said some time back, that you have to see how the world is evolving and keep learning new skills. Because if you don't do that, if you don't reinvent yourself every few years, you can become obsolete. And if your skills are no longer relevant, your the ability of for you to add value in the world outside comes down,
Becomes limited, yeah.
right? Exactly. So you need to keep reinventing yourself, and you can do that by trying new things and learning new skills, right? You also need to get out of your comfort zone. Okay. So for example,
Absolutely.
just like you, how you moved away from home, I'm sure initially it was difficult, but at the end of it, you will feel much better about yourself, and you'll feel a sense of achievement that you've been able to accomplish some things independently on your own, uh, without staying in the comfort of your family, right? So
True.
even in life, even in career, you need to keep moving out of your comfort zone, because that's the only way you'll become stronger and you'll keep
You'll be exposed to the
reinventing
world
yourself. Exactly,
more.
right? Then I think finally in the world of business, or in the world of in the corporate world, um, I more very important is to network and keep building new relationships, right? You have
I think I've
to
heard
sometimes
that in
reach out.
almost every podcast or every person I've spoken to, they've always spoken to me about how important networking is, and how even as an entrepreneur, even I've spoken to people who are in the field of entrepreneurship. They've also said that, especially when you're starting out, uh,
Yeah.
networking is super important, and that's how you're able to build your way up.
Yes.
Yeah.
So as you grow, you will have different stakeholders, right? As a student, you'll have stakeholders. Your stakeholders are teachers, your peers, maybe some, lab assistants, maybe some seniors in your school, right? When
Yeah.
you grow, when you do business, your stakeholders are your clients, your suppliers, your employees, right? So you have to network, you have to build new relationships, and you have to communicate, right? Your communication skill is the most important skill that you can develop nowadays, right? The ability how you can get your work done, influence other people by effective communication. And again, when you communicate, you're communicating with different stakeholders. So you have to use a different style, different articulation every time, right? So
True.
your ability to communicate and build a network is very important. So I would say these are the few things which are lessons for me.
I think a lot of people, including me, will be able to use them, especially about the networking and how you said never stop learning. Because again, today's world, there's renewable energy, there's AI, something that wasn't very popular back in your days, or
Absolutely.
in my father's days. So now the learning can't stop when these things are constantly
Absolutely.
evolving. So okay, I wanted to ask you something related to HSBC or any firm you've worked with.
Hmm.
I wanted to know any challenge you faced with them as a whole, and how you adapted. If there was any point in time where you had to make an adapt or a change to something that was happening. For example, COVID was something that everyone had to adapt to. So anything you would like to share about that?
Actually, that's something I also can think of, right? In terms of adaptation, which is all the change that has been made by COVID. So again, if you work in a bank or many industries actually, one of the biggest changes in a way, which was a result of COVID, has been digital transformation.
Yeah.
Okay, so the way we transact business today with clients or internally, it's all becoming more and more digital because of COVID. And COVID essentially what it did was um, it it reduced people from traveling. It kind of created hybrid working, so people working from home, not going to office. And if in that environment, if you have to continue doing business, okay, um, you in a way become borderless. So wherever you are, you do business. Wherever you are, you study. Wherever you are interacting with your clients and doing the same things with your clients. So it's all done digitally then, right? Because the physical
Yeah.
interaction and face-to-face interaction is less. You're not sending paper, but you're sending messages digitally, right? So that was the biggest transformation. And many organizations had to undergo that, especially if they were not really very digital before COVID. Okay, they had to create uh, infrastructure by which employees could work remotely. They had to create infrastructures by which they could interact with, do business with clients. They had to create infrastructures by which, even without people or senior management traveling often, they could do same work. And again, they had to revamp their systems and technology. So I
Definitely.
think that's the biggest transformation, and
Yeah.
that kind of firms have had to
Go through.
undergo.
Yeah. So, I
Yes,
wanted to ask you, is
and
there any?
likewise for employees also,
Yeah,
right?
sorry, continue. So, I wanted to ask you about any specific moment in your career that you're very proud of. You know, it can be anything of, being able to adapt, by moving out of your home country, or anything career-wise as well. Is there anything you'd like to share?
Yes. So what comes to my mind is my role in Hong Kong. When I came here, uh, I had the role I took up was in that I had a large team, right? So I had a team of almost 100 people. And again, when I came, COVID happened, right, in Hong Kong. And obviously, as we spoke earlier, because of that, people had to start working remotely, correct? So you come into a new role, a new place, and then all of a sudden your team starts working remotely. You not even kind of settle in your role, or you don't even know your team well,
Yeah.
right? And they start working remotely, right? That was the biggest leadership challenge for me. Again, because of COVID, because of all the transformation we had to do, we had to manage our existing business, plus at the same time transform the business,
Yeah.
right? Undergo all that digital transformation, run with some transformation projects, interact with clients in a different way. So they all happened together, right? So everything happened together. A new team starts working remotely, then you have to deliver on your business transformation, everything by interacting with people remotely. So that was the biggest leadership challenge for me, and a different culture because it was first time in Hong Kong.
Yeah.
So I think that whole transformation lasted for 2 years, but it was, you know, mind-boggling, and the learning was immense. So at the end of it, I kind of feel very satisfied and proud that
You
I
were
could
able to
enable
go
that.
through it. Yeah.
Absolutely, absolutely. I would say this has been my pride so far in my career.
Okay. Also, I asked you about advice in terms of, any lessons you've learned personally, but I also want to ask for advice in general of, someone wants to get into your role, your position, or in the world of banking or finance, any listeners, or for instance, even me, could you share some advice of how someone can go about it, or if you have any brief advice for anyone?
So you mean specifically for getting into banking or finance, or
Yeah, specifically in the field of
okay,
banking finance.
okay. Um, so see, the world of banking and finance is also very wide. Okay,
Yeah,
you you have transaction banking, for example, the space in which I am, right? You have credit and lending, in which you are financing clients, offering loans, working capital finance, many other structured finance and trade solutions, right?
yeah,
Then you have foreign exchange. You have insurance, right? You have retail banking. Again, there's retail banking, corporate banking,
yeah.
right? Two different streams. So what probably I would say is that you should read up and try and understand the basics around these things, okay?
Okay,
And see what specifically interests you. And again, in the more, I would say, more advanced banking will include investment banking, dealing with debt syndication, financing mergers and acquisitions, etc., etc., right? So I would say just say get an understanding of the different aspects of banking, right?
okay,
First of all, see whether it really interests you after you know about all this. And then how do you, and again, what specifically, if you were to, let's say, make a start, right, in a bank, where would you start off with? You can again kind of keep moving, keep learning new things in the bank also, but where would you make a start, right?
yeah,
So I think that's what you should start with first, and then focus your education. And one of the things which I mentioned earlier, I think I should have done better if I look back on my career, is that if I knew I was going to be in a bank, maybe I could have,
chose
studied
subjects
commerce instead of
Mm,
engineering, or maybe even in my MBA, I could have focused something more around finance per se, and less on marketing. So plan your education such that it is centered around what you would like to do. Okay. And
yeah,
again, in banks also, because of all the transformation happening, a lot of digitization is happening. So fintechs are coming up now,
fintech,
right?
yeah, yeah,
Fintechs, I won't say they are like direct competition to banks, but they are still, I would say they have a strong voice in the entire ecosystem, right?
yeah,
So look at what fintechs are doing. Think about how banking will evolve in the future, right?
yeah.
AI also is becoming an important aspect, especially in transaction banking. So AI also will be an important skill to even know in banking, right? So plan your education such a way that you learn these skills uh, for banking or for finance, and then that will make it easier for you to enter and be successful eventually also later on, because you've had a good head start in the beginning of your career.
Basically, the earlier you start and the earlier you have a clearer idea of what you
Correct.
want to do, you'll be able to do it better because you'll be
Absolutely.
more prepared on what's coming.
Absolutely.
Okay, lastly, I have this one very open-ended question that I like to ask a lot of people. So, if someone took your assets, money, and everything you stand for today, what would you do differently, to get back to this position or potentially even higher?
So firstly, I hope that doesn't happen, that no one takes my assets away.
Yeah,
But if that does happen, my answer remains the same. I would
learning.
plan my education little differently,
Yeah,
so that it is more focused around what I want to do, right? Uh, and nowadays, actually, the options for when I see my daughter, okay, the kind of exposure she has in an international school, or the kind of subjects she has, or even the kind of options she has when she goes to university are so much more wider when we studied in India, right? So when, for example, your dad and we were in the same grade. When we studied, the only options in front of us were, uh,
science,
engineering or
commerce.
medicine or
Yeah,
maybe commerce. Yeah, nothing more than that. So even, I mean, you'll just then choose whatever appeals to you at that point of time. You don't really kind of think
think about
about what what implications can have in future. You don't have an option as well, right? So but now options are so immense that which by the it's a good thing for the all of you today that you kind of have that kind of an exposure. So make the most of it. uh, Look at all these options, see what interests you, and go with your interest and passion. Do
Yeah.
not just go with what you think will make money for you. Money will come. It's an outcome of if you do something what you like, if you're excelling at what you like, and if you're able to provide service to the society through your work, money will come. There's no option. It has to come. But plan your career based on what interests you and what you're passionate about and how you can give back to society. If you do that, you'll be happy in your career with what you do, and you'll be successful, and you'll make other people happy also.
I definitely agree with you. I think I've heard that phrase as well, that, don't follow money, money will follow you as long as you do the right thing.
Absolutely.
I think this was all for
Absolutely.
today's episode. Thank you so, so much for joining me today. And thank you for your valuable time.
And it was a pleasure, Ron. Nice talking to you. Right?
Thank you so much.